Here's a presentation on how markets work, the first of three. The first one will be studying demand. So you guys have read about demand, and demand oftentimes comes a little bit more easier to people because we understand it as consumers. So we think about what is demand, the desire to own something and the ability to pay for it. So obviously, if you don't want something, you don't demand it. So that's the desire to own. But the ability to pay for it, you have to have the ability to afford whatever it is you want to buy. So I don't demand a helicopter because I can't afford to buy a helicopter. I don't have the ability to pay for a helicopter, so I can't demand it. Even though I greatly want one, I don't have the ability to buy it. So you have to have both the desire and the ability to pay for it. Both of these conditions have to be present to be considered part of demand. The law of demand is common sense to us as consumers that when the price of a good is low, people buy more of it. So you see something on sale like Coca-Cola, a 12 pack is $5 a 12 pack, and then it goes on sale for two for $5. I'm going to buy more of it. I'll buy two of them, or maybe I'll buy four of them because I'm getting a good deal. I want the money I have to go further by getting as much for it as I can. And the opposite is true when price is high. People will buy less of it. So if Coke was all of a sudden $6 a 12 pack, I might not buy any of it, or I might only buy one 12 pack because you don't want to spend any more of your money on one thing than you have to because then there's less money you can spend to buy other things. Think about why this law of demand exists, why people buy more at low prices and buy less at high prices. Sorry, that's my pug barking in the background. One reason is the substitution effect. Consumers react to the rising of one price by consuming less of a good or more of a substitute. So think about why that you will buy less when prices are high because if there's something that you can buy in place of it, then you're going to buy that instead. So if Coke is really high, it was like $6 a 12 pack, I might buy a Pepsi product or I might buy generic brand soda instead. So that influences my demand. The fact that my demand will go down as prices go up. The income effect, another common sense kind of idea. The more money you have, the less demand will change. So when you change your consumption, that's a result of when price increases. When a price increase causes real income to decline. So think if you have $10 and you want to buy as much as you can with $10 and prices go up, you might buy less of it. So if you buy the $5 12 pack of Coke, you only have $5 left to buy other things. Your real income, your $10, is affected by that. If your real income was $20, it would be different, or if your real income was $100, it would be different. But the idea that how much money you have depends on how much you're willing to demand products. The last idea behind understanding why this law of demand exists is decreasing marginal utility. That like it says, as consumption increases, the marginal utility derived from each additional unit declines. I think marginal, you're always thinking per unit, as you increase or decrease by 1 unit of whatever it is you're producing or consuming. So I think utility, the usefulness. So as you buy more of something, as you consume more of something, you get less and less utility out of it, less usefulness out of it. So you can imagine if you just ran a race, you were really thirsty, and someone was selling bottled water, you might pay $5 or $6 for a bottle of water because you're really, really thirsty. And then after you gulp down that first bottle of water, you might say, okay, I'll buy a second one, but maybe it's not worth $5 or $6 anymore. Maybe now you'd spend $4 for it because you're still pretty thirsty, but not as thirsty as before. So you guzzle that down, and now your thirst is quenched. But you maybe you could drink a little bit more water. But now you might think, well, now another bottle of water to me would only be worth, like $3 or something like that. So the less useful something is to you, the more you consume it becomes less useful, the less you'd be willing to pay for it. So it's decreasing marginal utility. So how would this look if we were to graph it or with numbers? So we look at something we call a demand schedule. So this is looking at someone's individual demand for pizza. So a demand schedule is a numerical representation in a chart with prices on one side and quantity demanded on the other. So if this was an individual person, so you go to the cafeteria and pizza slices were $6, nobody would buy, or I shouldn't say nobody, if this is an individual person, you wouldn't buy a slice of pizza for $1. If pizza was $5, you'd buy one because you're hungry. If it was $4, you'd buy two, and all the way down. If you got to $1, you might even buy 5, even if you had to, bring some home or stuff it in your locker or something along those lines. So this shows you that law of demand, that as prices go up, your demand goes down. The quantity demanded goes down, and as prices go down, your quantity demanded goes up. We show this in a graph with a downward sloping curve, and if you look at all the different things in here, it's $6, so we get $6. Nobody wants to buy it. We have a $6 here. zero quantity. Whenever we graph, you notice, I'm not sure how much we'll get a chance to graph with online, but if we look at on the y-axis, we put price per slice. So the prices are our constant variable, and then on the x-axis, we're putting quantity demanded. So that's going to be the way we do all kind of graphing. Price always goes on the vertical axis, and demand always goes on. Quantity always goes on the horizontal axis. So at $6, we have zero quantity. At $5, we have one person. You're willing to buy one piece of pizza. That shows over here. At $4, you're willing to buy 2 pieces of pizza, which shows again over here, and so on as you go down. We have a downward sloping to the right demand curve. If we look at this in a larger number, let's say this was a market, maybe we'll call this just the school's demand for pizza. So everybody's in the cafeteria, and how many slices of pizza would they sell during lunchtime? Well, in this you have the same phenomenon, law of demand. As price goes up, less people demand it, and as price goes down, more people demand it. And we show that again on this downward sloping curve, just like on the individual one. So at $6, maybe they'll sell 50 slices of pizza, and at $1, they'll sell 300 slices of pizza because people want to buy more of it when it's lower. So this is our law of demand represented visually. When we think about shifts in demand curves, so this demand curve that we've drawn is constant, and the reason that it doesn't change is because of what we call ceteris paribus, Latin for all other things held constant, meaning that if there are no other changes, the only change is price. This demand curve will stay where it is. This line is not going to move because it represents all these different points of how many people will buy slices of pizza at different prices. So that's not going to change unless something else other than price changes. Price changes impact quantity demanded. So we think about quantity demanded as 300 pieces of pizza were demanded, 250 pieces of pizza were demanded. That's the quantity demanded. If the only change in price, if the only change is price, the demand curve does not move. And if you think about a demand curve, anytime you draw it, it's only accurate if no other changes have taken place. There's some things that could make this whole line move one way or the other. If other factors outside of price changes, ceteris paribus no longer applies. Other changes could cause consumers to demand more or less of a good at every price. So we'll look at some of those. So we might say, okay, it's $6 now. Instead of 100 people wanting to buy it, only 50 people want to buy it. And or I should say $5 instead of 100 people, 50 people want to buy it. If $4 instead of 150 people want to buy it, only 100 people buy it. So every point along this line, if something else changes other than price, this whole line could move one way or another depending on what those variables were. So one thing that could change the entire demand curve would be income. So we have here, let's see, move a pointer. So up here we have a demand schedule for demand for a new car. So a brand new car at $10,000, 5,000 people want to buy it because that's a pretty good price for a new car. It's a very good price. $15,000, 4,000 people, $20,000. As the price goes up, demand goes down. So we see the law of demand. At low prices is more demand, and at high prices is less demand. Again, represented by this downward sloping curve. So what could change this? If people's income changes. So if we were going to say, okay, demand for a new car if income increases. So people, for whatever reason, say next year the economy is doing well, there raises, whatever it might be, tax breaks, which meant more money in their pocket, then more people would be willing to buy cars at higher prices. So if income changed for the better, and at $30,000 instead of just 1,000 people buying it, maybe 4,000 people would want to buy it. So they'd look for a car like a decent car like the Subaru Outback or something like that. That's for $30,000, and that change would happen all across the board. So at $10,000, it went from 5,000 people to 8,000 people wanting to buy a car. So if we have a change in income for the better, it can cause this whole line to move, which we represented. You see here, here's demand line 1. The whole line would shift to the right. Now this isn't exactly representative of these numbers just because of the limitations of what I can do in Google Slides with drawing, but this is showing that the whole line, demand 2, see D1, demand 1, our original demand, D2, or new demand, everything's changed. If you think about what the difference between a shift in demand is and just a price changing, if price changed, all we would do is say, okay, well, if price was this high, this many people buy it, and if price was lower, this many people buy it. We'd be moving along the same curve. But a shift in demand, when you have something called a shifter, like changes in income, Every point along this line is going to move. We were at, see, this says, pretend this was $30,000 and only 1,000 people wanted to buy it. Now 4,000 people want to buy it. And here might be $25,000, 2,000 people wanted to buy it. Now 5,000 people wanted to buy it. So the whole line would shift because people's income changed. So all these different price points, people will change their demand. This is for what we were called normal goods. Normal goods, as you read about in the book, are typical goods that you would buy if that might be affected by income or other changes in demand. So you would buy a new car would be a normal good. This is different for inferior goods. So if we look at this example of cars, a used car would be an inferior good. So in this case, we actually would see an increase in income, and a change in income might actually cause a decrease in demand for inferior goods. So if you look, which is the opposite of what we might think. So we think we have our original demand curve. Here's D1, our original demand curve here. At $5,000, 8,000 people would buy a used car, but now only 6,000 would buy used cars. So you might say, why is that? If the price is low, why would it go down? Because if people's income increased, then these people that maybe were previously buying used cars might now look for a new car because their income has gone up. So a change in income usually causes an increase in demand for normal goods, but a decrease in demand for inferior goods. I think about this with things like when times are good, if I have more money than usual, I buy name brand foods, like I'll buy Coca-Cola, or Dr. Pepper. But when, if I have less money, then I'll buy inferior goods such as Dr. Perky, which is the Hannaford version of Dr. Pepper, or Mountain Lion, which is the Hannaford version of Mountain Dew. A little bit cheaper, so I'll buy the inferior goods, not as good as the original, but still, acceptable. If we look at other things that can change demand, we get changes in consumer expectations. So we get the example here of bathing suits. So if you're going to buy a bathing suit, let's say, any old time you're going to buy a bathing suit. If it's $5, 100 people might buy a bathing suit, a new bathing suit. If it's $10, they might buy, 75 people might buy it. And as we go up to 25, only 5 people might buy a bathing suit. They might say it's too expensive for a bathing suit. So this would be our normal demand, but we might say, okay, if we expect things to be different, if we're going to see an increase of all these, you can think right around this time of year, March, if you were going to the store, to Walmart or some other store where you buy bathing suits, Target, whatever, you might say, well, in the summer, they're going to release a bunch of new bathing suits, and everyone's going to want to buy bathing suits in the summer because they're going to be thinking about going to the beach, which means prices might go up in the future. So if that's the case, if you expect prices to go up in the future, in the here and now, you might buy more at this given time. So you might say, well, I didn't want to spend $25 for a bathing suit, but when the summer comes, those same bathing suits might be $35 because they know everyone's going to need them. So I might buy more bathing suits now, or this wouldn't be, I wouldn't buy 25 bathing suits, but 25 people might buy a bathing suit now because they expect the prices to go up in the future. And you see a similar thing with all, oops, where'd that go? Let's see. See a similar thing with all these other numbers here. They would go up. So we could see a change in consumer expectations could, in this case, cause an increase in demand, which again you would see by, here's our original demand line, demand D1, and at all these different prices, or all these different quantities, all these different prices, quantity would go up. So this was people that would buy it at, let's see, down here, this would be people that would buy a bathing suit at $5. It was 100 people, now it's 150 at $5. And down here would be, there's only 5 people that would buy a bathing suit at 25, now it's 25 people. So consumer expectations could cause demand to change too. Same thing could happen, it could go down. So people might change their mind about buying something in the future based on prices of things going down. So for example, a video game system. So we have a new demand schedule for a video game system. And at $100, 1,000 people might buy it. This could be whatever. It could be, PlayStation, Xbox, or, Oculus, whatever it is that people are buying, whatever the new thing is. At $100, lots of people would buy it. And at $5 or $500, less people would buy it. Only the people that really want to play video games would buy it at $500. So you can think about what could cause people to buy less of it now. We can think about new quantity demanded. Perhaps if it's near Christmas, pretend this was October, and Christmas is coming, and your Thanksgiving and Black Friday, you know that there's going to be tons of sales going on for video game systems. So why would you buy a video game system now for $200 or $500 when you can buy it next month for, say, $300? So if you expect prices to go down in the future, all the quantities at all these different prices would decrease. So that would cause a decrease in demand. So you see the original demand line here. All these different prices, demand is shifted to the left. It's gone down. Another shifter of demand could be population. So let's go backwards. Take that out there. Think about if this was demand for any good. If it could be pizza, it could be gasoline, whatever it might be. If there's a change in population for, see what I have, a decrease in demand, you can imagine that the population maybe has declined. People will have left the region or they've left the state. New Hampshire has more people leaving than coming in. So as the population declines, all of demand would decline. So you think about all these different prices. This is our original demand. At high prices, this many people wanted to buy it, but now at high prices, there's less people physically available to buy it because they have left or emigrated. So now there's this many people with demand. So that could cause an entire shift. And then the opposite would be true. If more people moved into this region, then demand would go up because there'd be more people to buy it. Another shifter in demand could be demographics. So you might think, okay, if there was see what could be a demographic that could cause, was you look at a decrease in demand. A demographic change could be if you have an aging population, less people today wear denim than they used to, less people wearing blue jeans. It seems to be an older person phenomenon. So if our population was getting younger, there might be a decrease in demand in this case for denim jeans because people are more wearing sweatpants or wind pants now or shorts or whatever it might be. So if there was a aging population at all these different price points, it would shift from the original demand here and it would go down, shifting to the left, showing a decrease in demand. If there was some other demographic change, it could cause things to go up. So if you have a younger population moving in, for instance, then that could cause an increase of demand for whatever it is you kids buy these days, like Beanie Babies or such. So a change in demographics could cause that price to increase, or that demand to increase. And all these different price points that, at this price, more people would buy it. At this price, more people would buy it, and so on. Changing consumer taste can also cause a change in demand, another shifter of it that would cause all the line to move. So we think about changes in consumer taste could be positive news about a product. It could be a celebrity advertisement or celebrity endorsement. It could just be a regular advertisement that increases your desire to buy something or makes you think you need something you didn't want before. So at all these different prices, if you saw a good ad for, like, say, Dunkin' Donuts has Gronkowski, or at least it used to have Gronkowski as their spokesperson. So if you're a Patriots fan, you like Rob Gronkowski, you might say, I'm going to buy an iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. So at all these different price points, people in New England, their demand might go up for iced coffee because they saw Rob Gronkowski advertising it. Or if there's some other something else that came out that talked about how even like plant-based foods was good for you, you'd see an increase in plant-based food consumption or purchases because people think, oh, I'm going to eat healthier, I want my to live longer, so all these demand points will go up. So people that used to only be willing to buy this much plant-based food to this price would buy this much. And if people were willing to buy that much plant-based food, now would buy that much. You could also see a decrease in consumer taste if you had something opposite, like if you looked at cars, if you had a particular brand of car that all of a sudden a report came out that was unsafe and the airbags didn't go off or caught on fire or something like that, you would see that all of a sudden consumer taste would drop for that brand of car, and all of a sudden this whole line would shift to the left. At all these different price points, less people would demand that car. So consumer taste can cause the whole line to shift one way or the other. Price-related goods is the last one that can cause this line to shift. So think about if you have our original demand line here, and if we're thinking about related goods, they could be substitutes or complements. So we think about substitutes. If you were buying, if you were into skiing, and all of a sudden the price, where'd it go? You're into skiing, and all of a sudden the price of snowboards went down, then maybe you'd be more inclined, or if you were thinking about picking up, say, a winter sport, you were deciding between skiing or snowboards, and the price of snowboards went up, they were really expensive, then your demand for skis might go up because it's a substitute good. So the more expensive snowboards were made you think, oh, more people will go out and buy skis now. So the price of skis hasn't changed, but the demand for skis may go up because the price of a substitute good, snowboarding, has gone up. And the reverse could be true too. You can have a decrease in demand because of a substitute good. So if people are buying hamburgers and all of a sudden the price of the ingredients for pizza were to go down and pizza became cheaper, the demand, all these different lines of demand for hamburgers will go down. So the price of hamburgers hasn't changed. The price of pizza, a substitute good, has. So people might buy less hamburgers at all these different price points. People used to buy this many hamburgers at like $2. Now they're buying that many because other people have changed and gone over to buy pizza. Similarly, you can think about complements, things that like if we go back to skis, if there were a change in the price of ski boots, so ski boots went on sale 50%, so you're inclined to go buy new ski boots, you might also see a demand change for skis because people say, well, I'm getting a good deal on the ski boots, therefore I'm going to buy skis. The price of skis hasn't changed, so but the price of their complement goods, ski boots, has, so it makes it go up. People might buy more skis. So again, here's a summary of the shifters of our demand, things that can cause the whole line to move up one way or another. We look at a couple last few examples just to illustrate it. Like what would happen to the demand curve for donuts if the cost of coffee decreases? So this is the demand curve for donuts. This is how many donuts people will buy at different prices if the cost of coffee were to decrease. I think that the demand for donuts would increase. People will buy more donuts because people are buying more coffee. So the price of coffee decreases. It doesn't mean the line for coffee, if we're going to draw another line here for coffee, that line wouldn't change, but we just move up and down the line. Imagine it says coffee, we just say, okay, the price was $4 and this many people bought it. Now it's $2, this many people bought it, so that line wouldn't change. You just move along that line to show a quantity change for price. But this line is now representing donuts. So what would the demand curve for donuts be? Well, all these different prices, people will buy more donuts because coffee became cheaper and they complement each other. You want to have a donut with your coffee. So this line would shift to the right. It would go this way because as a price of a related good, a complement has gone down. Another example of what would happen to the demand for the curve for Red Sox tickets if the Red Sox win most of their games. So this is at all these different price points, people will buy tickets. So you're thinking the Red Sox, right? So you got like, your $1,000 seats and only a few people are buying those behind the dugout. Then you have your outfield seats at $50, and those people are buying those. More people are buying those. There's a higher quantity and all the price points in between. The Red Sox win more games. The demand curve would increase because of consumer taste. People would have more interest in watching the Red Sox. Nobody's going to buy. Less people are going to want to buy a $1,000 ticket if they stink and they're not going to win any games. And even down to the $50 seats, less people would want to buy those. But if they're winning their games, the demand for tickets would increase because of consumer taste. This whole line would shift this way to the right. What would happen to the demand curve for video games? Well, I guess I already talked about this one if the population got older. I'm not sure if I use video games as an example for the population though. So if we think about this is at all these different price points, how many video games would be bought, and all of a sudden the population were to change and become older, then we'd have a demographic change. Video games would decrease, generally speaking, because older people don't play video games as much as younger people. So as demographics change, this whole line would shift to the left. It would go this way because, it would go this way because at all these different points, less people would buy at all these different prices. So if people were buying video games at $50 here, and this is where it was, that might move over here. Now nobody wants to buy $50, and the whole line would shift down over here. What would happen to the demand curve for TVs if minimum wage increased? So you think about that as a change in income. So demand would increase if people had more money because they were making more money. Then they might buy more TVs. So we have a change in income for the better. More people making money because minimum wage increases, which means more people would go out and buy TVs. So the price of TVs hasn't changed. This is the demand curve for TVs, but all these different prices at a $1,000 TV, instead of just one person buying it, maybe it would go over here and there'd be 3 people buying them. And at this point, for a $250 TV, this many people would buy it. Now maybe that line would be over here, and this many people would buy it. So the whole line would then shift over here to the right because the demand for TVs would go up because of a change in income. Like then what would happen to the demand curve for generic store brand soda if wages went down? So you think about that, that's an inferior good. So this is our demand curve for generic store brand sodas, and wages go down. Normally you think if income goes down, the demand would go down, but since this is an inferior good, people would buy more generic brand soda because they're trying to save money because they can't afford to buy Coke or Pepsi. So for an inferior good, a drop in income usually causes an increase in their demand. What would happen to demand curve for laptops if there's a drop in prices? This one's a little bit more tricky because you think, what is this a shifter of demand? Is a change in price is a shifter of demand? It wouldn't change at all. There'd be no change because ceteris paribus is in place. The only thing that changed was price. There's no other changes. Therefore, there's no change in the quantity demanded. So you think about if the price of laptops was $1,000, this many people would buy it, and a change in price would just say, okay, well, the price was here, and now it's $800. We just look here; it's already plotted on this graph, and this many people will buy it. And the price was $200. It's already plotted on this graph. This many people would buy it. This would be our quantity. So the quantity demanded would not change, or the quantity demanded would change, but the overall curve would stay the same. That would not change. An activity to check for your understanding of demand. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen, you can copy this on there. So make a vertical axis with the price on there, and a horizontal axis with quantity on there. And up here we have 5 different demand curves. So you can draw 5 straight lines going downward to the right, just like a demand curve would, and label them A, B, C, and D, and E. I'll give you a second to do that. And then anytime during this activity, you can pause the video while you're drawing that. So you're done doing that, we'll look at this scenario. So for each of the following scenarios, we're going to look at demand for Patriots merchandise, so things you buy, shirts, hats, whatever it might be, bobbleheads. Will each event make demand increase, decrease, or stay the same? So if it increases, you're going to move your finger to the right and to the left. If it decreases, so go back to this. So you're going to start at C. Everyone's going to start here. And if the scenario says that demand for Patriots merchandise would increase, then move your finger to the right and keep it there until the next scenario. If you think the scenario would make the demand for Patriots merchandise go down, then move it to the left and keep your finger there until the next scenario. If you think it wouldn't cause any change at all, then leave it where it is. All right, so everyone's starting at C. Put your pen or finger there. So for each of these events, the Patriots win their 6th Super Bowl. Is that going to cause an increase, a decrease, or stay the same? So an increase will move to the right, a decrease will move to the left, and staying the same obviously stays where it is. If the Patriots, if New England suffers a recession and unemployment increases, would people buy more or less Patriots gear? Would that cause an increase in demand for Patriots merchandise, a decrease in demand for Patriots merchandise, or would it stay the same? There's a sale on all Patriots gear, 50% off. So half off on all Patriots merchandise. Would that make demand increase, decrease, or stay the same? Remember, you can pause this at any time if I'm going too fast for you. Tom Brady leaves the Pats. Fans react with outrage. So today they announced Tom Brady is leaving the Patriots. People are outraged. They're mad at Bob Kraft and Bill Belichick for not doing more to keep him, getting him more receivers or paying him more. So fans are outraged. Would that cause them to increase their demand for Patriots merchandise, decrease their demand, or would it stay the same? The price of Patriots tickets gets reduced. Would that cause an increase in demand for merchandise, a decrease in demand for merchandise, or would it stay the same? New England experiences an influx of New Yorkers moving to the region, so more people from New York that don't like the Patriots. Would that cause an increase in demand for merchandise, a decrease in demand for merchandise, or would it stay the same? And then the last one, free Red Sox tickets with a purchase of any regular priced Patriots jersey. So if you buy a Patriots jersey, you're going to get a deal on Red Sox tickets. Would that cause an increase in demand for Patriots merchandise, a decrease, or stay the same? So looking at right down where you left off, and we'll see where we should leave off. So we started at C. The Patriots win their 6th Super Bowl. That's going to cause an increase in demand because of consumer taste. More people are going to become Patriots fans, or they're going to like them even more than they did before, and they're going to buy more shirts, hats, and bobbleheads, or whatever it might be, foam fingers, whatever it is, whatever the merchandise is. So then we'd be on line D. New England suffers a recession and unemployment increases. So people are making less money in New England because of unemployment. So they have less money to spend on Patriots gear, so their demand's going to decrease. So at all the different points in the line, they'll buy less hats, shirts, or whatever. A sale on all Patriots gear, 50% off. Oh, so we were on line D. We started at C, we moved to D, and then we would move down again to C with this decrease in demand. So your finger should be on C. Sale on all Patriots gear, 50% off. So everything you buy is half off. That's a change in price. There would be no change or shift in demand, ceteris paribus. So you would stay on line C. You wouldn't change. The quantity everybody demanded would change at every price, but it wouldn't change the entire curve. Tom Brady leaves the Patriots. Fans react with outrage. that would probably cause boycotts and anger, so people would probably stop buying Patriots merchandise. They might buy Tom Brady shirts for whatever team he goes to because they're loyal to Tom, but they buy less Patriots gear, so your demand would decrease. So it goes down to line B. The price of Patriots game tickets is reduced. Think about that. That is a price of a related good. So you might think of a complement good. So people might say, oh, well, it costs less to go to a Patriots game. I'm spending, instead of $100 for a ticket, I'm spending $75. So maybe I'll spend some money on a Patriots shirt because I got such a reduced price. So then your demand would go up to line C. That would cause an increase in demand because of a complement good. New England experiences an influx of workers moving to the region, New Yorkers moving to the region. They don't like the Patriots. They're going to buy less stuff. So overall, the demand would decrease for Patriots gear. There'd be less people willing to buy it. Probably have some influence on some people here, and maybe less people like the Patriots. So we should be on line B at that point. And then our last one, Red Sox tickets, a free Red Sox ticket with a purchase of any regular priced Patriots jersey. So you think, well, I buy a Patriots jersey, a related good, a complement good, you might think, free Red Sox tickets, that's worth it. So even though the price of Patriots stuff hasn't changed, the free ticket makes it worth it. That could cause an increase in demand. So we end up on line C. So everybody, if you followed that correctly and did the scenarios, you should have ended up on line C. Look at for demand is understanding elasticity of demand, which is a measure of how consumers respond to price changes, how much they're willing to buy less of something if the price changes. So think about how that's going to affect the demand curve. It's not going to cause price changes, again, don't cause the demand curve to shift, right? You're just moving up and down the line, but it could cause a different looking curve depending on that. So think about elastic versus inelastic. If something's elastic, it's stretchable, right? So think about if prices change and demand is elastic, people will be less likely to want to buy stuff. Oops. They're going to demand less of it at any given price. So you think about something that might have an elastic price on it would be something that usually things you don't need, so that you want but you don't need. So like a new pair of basketball shoes, maybe you don't play basketball, you just want them for the style. So if the price went from $100 to $150, a lot less people would buy basketball shoes. So the elastic demand means that consumers' demand will change more. They'll be impacted more by price changes than it was if it's inelastic. Think about things that are inelastic; they're not stretchable, so those goods won't have a great change in how much people demand, the quantity they demand if this price changes. Those might be things more like what you need. So we look at some examples of that, or not some things that can affect that. Factors affecting elasticity: the availability of substitutes. So think if there's nothing that you can substitute for something, such as say like water. If you want, I mean, there's other things you can drink, but if you want water, there's only water. So since there's no substitute, that would make your demand more inelastic. Price changes in water probably won't lead to people buying a whole lot less water. If there's plenty of substitutes, like for instance, I've talked about soda a couple times. If there's Coke, but then there's Pepsi, there's the off-market brands, there's plenty of substitutes, then my demand for Coke will change greatly every time the price goes up. I'll buy less and less of it and buy more of other things because they're available. Think about the relative importance to a budget. If you only buy a little bit of something, so if I drink coffee, so if I drink say 5 cups of coffee a week, that's a pretty big part of my budget, my weekly budget, and spending money on coffee. So if the price changes for coffee, I'd have a very elastic demand because it's a pretty big part of my budget. But if I didn't drink coffee, I don't like tea. So let's say the price of tea went up and I only drink tea once a month, my demand would be inelastic. If the price of tea went from $4 to $6, it probably wouldn't change how much tea I drink because I don't drink it very often. So it depends on how much of your budget something is. If you spend a lot of something normally, a lot of money on something normally, then it might make your demand more elastic when prices go up. And if you hardly ever spend money on something, that might make your demand more inelastic. And then to think necessities versus luxuries. Do you need it or do you just want it? If it's a necessity, something you have to have, then that would make your demand very inelastic. And if it's something that you just want, that you don't need, you can live without, and the price went up, then you would spend less of it. So we'll look at some examples of those things. And then change over time. Sometimes demand might change less in the short run or more in the long run. So for instance, I think about if the price of gasoline went up, and we're talking about your demand for hybrid cars or electric cars. We'll say electric cars. So the price of gasoline's going up, and then demand over time would probably change for electric cars, but your demand in the meantime would be probably fairly inelastic for gasoline cars because you might take a couple of years to really decide that you want to make a shift over to electric cars. So the overall demand for regular cars would probably stay inelastic. People would still buy the same amount of cars, but over time, if they saw price changes or the price of gasoline staying high consistently, then they might over time start shifting over to more of an elastic demand and deciding to make a leap to electric cars. So we look at some examples of these things. How elastic would the demand for gasoline be? We have three different lines here. So this line here is an elastic demand. You show that it's very shallow. It's not steep at all. And you think about that, it's because if the price for gasoline was here, if the price for any good was this high, this would be our demand. And it changes quite a bit when you go to, let's say, this is one point here. If we went to this point, there's a big change to that point from here to there. The quantity demand has changed greatly. We've had this huge changing demand for a very small change in price. This is an inelastic demand curve. So you think about this is the price of a good up here, and this is how many people purchased it. And it's only changed a little bit all the way when you go down to the lowest price. It's changed much less than on this elastic demand curve. So that steep line would make an inelastic demand curve. Sometimes, very rarely, we'll see a perfectly inelastic demand curve, meaning that it doesn't matter how much the price changes, the same amount of people are going to buy it. So we'll see some examples of that. So it doesn't matter if it's $1,000 or $10, it's not really going to change the amount of people that would buy this good. So think about the demand for gas. Would it be elastic or inelastic? It would be relatively inelastic because people, for the most part, are going to buy gas. If it's $2 today and it's $2.50 tomorrow, they're probably still going to buy, for the most part, the same amount of gas. If gas prices go up, like $5, then we'd probably start seeing this demand curve shallow out a little bit. But when we have fluctuations in price of gas, it very rarely changes the amount of gas people buy because they still need to fuel their cars, get to work, and do other things. If you look at the elastic for soda, would it be very elastic? So if the price of soda went up, would it change people's demand for soda? Would it not change at all, or would it change it very little with inelastic demand, or would it not change it at all? Soda, it would be very elastic. Think about one of those things affecting elasticity. Soda is a luxury, not a necessity. Nobody needs soda. There's plenty of available substitutes. So you'd say, okay, I don't need it. It's a luxury, and then I can drink water or milk or juice or whatever it might be. So that soda would have a very elastic demand curve. How elastic would the demand for iPhones be? This one's tricky. I don't know if this one's as clear-cut an answer. But I would probably say inelastic. So it's sometimes, years ago I might have said it's a luxury, but nowadays it's a little bit more of a necessity. There are substitutes for it. You can get a Samsung or other devices, smartphones. But since iPhone seems to have the control of the market and more people want them, then the demand is relatively inelastic. When iPhones come out, new ones come out, and the prices go up, people still rush out to buy one even though the iPhone they have is perfectly fine. So that would be an inelastic demand curve. Elasticity of movie tickets. Would it be elastic, inelastic, or perfectly elastic? It would be elastic because people don't have to go to the movies. There's streaming videos. There's on demand. Granted, people still, obviously go to the movies, but if the price were to change from, say, the price down here was currently, let's say what tickets for movies are like $14. So let's say it's $14, this many people, this quantity of people will buy movie tickets. If the price went up to $20, a lot less people go to the movies. Other people say, I like going to the movies. I like seeing things as they come out before everyone else does, but I'll see a lot less movies if the tickets are $20. I'll wait for them to come onto demand or be streaming or DVD or whatever it is they do. So movie tickets being a luxury, not a necessity, would have a very elastic demand curve. UNH tuition. You think about going to UNH, so would that be elastic or inelastic? This one's probably not 100% clear cut, but I would say probably elastic because there's other options out there. You might say, well, I don't want to go to another state, and it's still, it's right down the road. But there are a lot of other options. You could live at home and go to, Granite State College or Great Bay College. You could go to Plymouth. You could go to Keene. You could go to a school in Massachusetts or Maine. So you have a lot of substitutes available for a UNH education. So if the price of UNH education went from, I think now it's just to, well, with the room and board, I think it's like $26,000. So if it went up to $40,000, a lot of people would find other alternatives. A lot less people would attend UNH. The demand would go down. The quantity demanded would go down. How elastic would demand for milk be? Oh, I guess I gave it away. There should have been some other ones here, but it would be very inelastic. There's not really a substitute for milk. If you need milk for babies or for protein, whatever it might be, for cereal, you can't pour juice into cereal. You can't pour water into cereal. You need milk for cooking. So milk has traditionally been very inelastic. You'll buy a little bit less. So maybe if I, personally, I might buy 2 gallons of milk a week, but maybe if the price went up, then I'd buy 1 gallon of milk, or 1.5 gallons of milk. So my demand would go down, but it wouldn't change completely. It wouldn't change terribly. It wouldn't be a drastic change in the amount of milk demanded, because there's not a an easily available substitute, and milk tends to be a necessity. How about the elastic demand? How elastic would the demand for socks be? Well, you might think we all need socks. Everybody wears socks, or most people wear socks. But I would say it's probably inelastic, because if the price of socks went up, you'd probably still buy them, because you think about how often do you buy socks. Think about relative importance to budget. You don't buy socks that often. You probably buy socks, once a year, maybe once every 4 or 5 years. So just considering that, if socks went from $5 for a package of 5 socks to $10 for a package of 5 socks, you're probably still going to buy. You're probably still going to buy the same amount of socks in a couple years when yours get holes in them, even if the price went up, because you don't buy them that often, and it's going to be a very small part of your budget. And you might argue it's a necessity too, but some people might argue differently. I think the big thing is socks don't make up that big of a part of your budget. Unlike milk, where you buy milk every week, socks you buy once every couple of years. And then we think about the elasticity of something like EpiPen. So if you have allergies to bee stings or nuts, you need EpiPen. Would your demand be elastic, inelastic, or perfectly elastic? This is one of the only things I can think of that would be falling under perfectly elastic. If you need an EpiPen and your life depends on it, it doesn't matter if it's $100 for an EpiPen, $50 for an EpiPen, or $5 for an EpiPen. If you don't need it, you don't need it, so you're not going to buy it. And if you need it, you have to have it. Same might go for insulin for people with diabetes. People that don't need insulin aren't going to buy it, so it doesn't matter what the price is. And people that need insulin because they're diabetic have to have it, so they're going to buy it no matter what the price is. So something like insulin or EpiPen or a medication could be perfectly elastic because it's an absolute necessity. Last one, I think, what would the demand for heating oil be? So you need to heat your house. If the price goes up, it's probably going to be inelastic. You're not going to like it. You're going to have to cut back in other areas if the price of heating oil goes up, but you still need to heat your house. So you might start turn the thermostat down, wear more warm clothes, trying to save heat, but it's not going to change a great deal, because you still need at least a minimum amount of heating oil to heat your house in the winter. So it'll be a very inelastic demand curve. It's a necessity. You have to have it. Oh, maybe this is the last one. How elastic would the demand for energy drinks be? Do you need them? No. Do you buy them often? Probably. So it might be a big part of your budget. So it's a luxury item. It's a big part of your budget. It's probably going to be, and there's substitutes too. It's probably going to be an elastic demand curve. You might say, okay, I like energy drinks better than coffee, but they're expensive and I buy one every day. So now I'm going to buy coffee instead and save money, because it's a big part of my budget. If I buy it every day, it's a luxury item. You don't have to have it, and there's a readily available substitute. So the elasticity for energy drinks would be elastic because you could get other things.